Kayla, did it tell you?
Yep, we're good to go.
Okay. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to, before I do that, I'm going to welcome our two coaches with our OSU program. Matthew Cheney, he is down on main campus, and Seth Ebert at ATI. They both are, as you've maybe heard so far, that they're really excited about helping us get this whole program going and stronger, because we have some good things going, but there's lots to be done and lots of opportunity. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to turn it over to Seth and Matthew.
All right. I guess I'll start since I'm talking already. But my name's Seth Ebert, coach up here at Ohio State ATI, and in a nutshell, we really wanted to put these webinars together to benefit you guys as coaches, mentors, parents that are trying to get a livestock judging program started. Matthew and I both know how hard it is to build a program, coach a program, get new kids, starting at 8 years old all the way up to 18 in your guys' case. And, we really wanted to just put something free and open to the public together to help benefit you guys. So the way tonight, I know Matthew and I talked a little bit about it. The way tonight's going to kind of work is him and I might express maybe the ways we go around about things, but we'd really like a lot of question and answers from you coaches to know exactly what you guys need to know about building your program, your team, things of that nature. So I'll jump off and let Matthew introduce himself and say some opening statements here.
So, well, thank you guys all for being in attendance. I know they're out on 7 p.m. Wednesday night, and we could have other things to do, but I want to let you guys each know that you're appreciated, and we appreciate the questions that are going to follow. More so from, we're going to use this webinar as a large informational night. So you guys can ask questions like Seth stated, and for us to even maybe explain a little bit about what we do, in both of our programs from a coaching standpoint, and especially gearing up here this time of year, trying to get kids excited and get back into the swing of things is probably, one of the questions we might get later today. But in terms of how to go about that, how do we get things back up and running as we approach state contests here in a few months. But I'm Matthew Cheney, and I'm the head coach here on Columbus's main campus, where I coach livestock judging teams. So feel free if you got any questions, don't be shy. We're going to be on until there's no questions. So go for it.
So, Becky, do you want Matthew and I maybe to just talk about how we go about our programs, and then maybe that'll help turn the wheels in some of these coaches' minds that are on here about maybe some questions that they have about my philosophy, Matthew's philosophy, or anything like that? Is that how you like to?
Yep, let's just go ahead and go that way.
Okay. Well, since you're muted, Matthew, I'll take the lead on this one. But so, I grew up in the state of Ohio. So those of you that are on here, I'm trying to look through names. I know some of you guys, but when I started at ATI, kind of grew up understanding the need for livestock judging here in the state of Ohio. Through my college endeavors, judging on a judging team, I always make the joke with my team all the time. I win the state in 4-H judging here. I win sweep it. Go to Wyoming and find out how stupid I was. That I always make that joke, and it's not really a joke. It's the truth. I mean, I thought I was good, found out I wasn't good. And when I was blessed with the opportunity to coach a collegiate team here and take more of an assertive role with extension and and trying to build youth programs within the state. I think it's important for you coaches to know that, Matthew and I see Mackenzie's on here as well. She's been very supportive of that too. And Becky and Kayla and the extension educators, we're all here for you. And all you have to do is pick up the phone and talk to us. I love to talk. Anybody that knows me knows I like to talk. So more than willing to help. Anyway, back to my program and what we do here at ATI. So when I started here, um, no dollars really to speak of, and trying to recruit kids. And the one thing I did that I think you guys can also do at the 4-H, FFA, youth level is try to recruit character with talent. The big thing I've always prided myself on is I can coach kids that want to be coached. The kids that don't want to be coached, you just end up fighting with them all the time, trying to get them to see the correct way of doing it. It's a little harder coaching strategy. So for me, trying to build a culture here was about trying to get good kids that are culture builders, leaders, things like that. And I know in some of your situations, you're saying, well, Seth, how do you know if an 8-year-old's a leader? How do you know a 9-year-old's a leader? And I agree with that. I understand that. And I think some ways you guys can recruit your programs is, there's so much of a livestock influence in every county in this state. When I hear people say, well, we can't get enough kids for a team, thinking, boy, just judge the hog show there with 400 kids and, 100 of them are from the county. I think there's a lot of interest in the state. So, don't think you're by yourself or on your own that you can't get a team put together. But, here I like to try to start at a very basic approach. I teach collegiate kids their freshman year the same way. Like last year, I did a small in-person presentation with Ashland County and Wayne County here at CAB. I had 40 kids there. I taught them with the same PowerPoint I teach college kids, because judging can be that simple if you let it be that simple. And it's making similarities, like in one of my presentations, which you guys will see if you tune in with the portions I'm doing, because I'll use the same type of material, but, like a pig in comparison to a brick with a neck and 4 feet. That's what a hog's supposed to be: square up high, square down low, genuine. Trying to make those similarities, meat animal shape, talking about what true shape looks like a heart, compared to an egg. I use those comparisons all the time, and I think the biggest thing is, and I guess I can say it's not our program here, but when you're trying to build the fundamentals, but don't expect elite evaluators in 2 weeks. I mean, that just doesn't happen. I mean, it's a time-based process, that, repetition. And I think, here, the biggest thing I can say is, at least for our program, is getting our kids bought into the program and understanding the grind and what it takes to be good and elite and learn, has been something I've been extremely excited about here. We've had some very good early success with some students that have never marked a judging card in their life. So been very excited with our program and the team here. But coaching philosophy wise, and then I'll shut up and let Matthew kind of take over on his end for a little while. But the big thing I always see is you've got coaches that maybe know what they need to do, but have a struggle in coaching it, or maybe they want to be a coach, but don't know what to coach, and or things of that nature. And that was the main goal of this webinar, was to offer the materials to help either way, build programs, to give you guys the structured format of how Matthew and I do it, our mentality, situational mentalities, things like that, to help elevate the entire state of Ohio, because I would love nothing less. I bleed scarlet and gray, so I want Buckeye Nation to be well represented. Whether they come judge for me in junior college at ATI or they go out of state, that's up to them. I'm going to say they couldn't do that, but at the same time, we want to try to put our Ohio State stamp on them, and that's the main reason we're here tonight, is to hopefully get a lot of questions from you guys about specifically what you guys want to know. Matthew, go ahead. I could talk all night, so you're up.
Well, I think a lot of things Seth says is, probably true across the board for a lot of us. And whether it's learning how to just what I would say simple evaluate classes and just kind of break the big picture items down so where it's very understandable across the board. That's something that I try and teach there on our introductory level courses, and then when we, I guess, officially meet as a group that first time, we do the same thing. We go over kind of the big picture things. We're real big on correlations in terms of a lot of people might just come from a strong cattle background. A lot of people might come from more of a small ruminant focus. So trying to bridge that gap between species, we do a lot of correlations, from a stoutness standpoint, from a build and skeleton standpoint as well. Probably the biggest thing that I've stressed a lot for the kids that judge for me here on Columbus's campus is reasons. And I think, when it comes to reasons, there's a lot of intimidation factor behind it. There's, maybe from a coach standpoint, I know a few kind of questions I would have that, probably come into a little bit of that kind of focal point would be, do I know enough terms? I've been out of the game for, a few years. How can I get these kids to, make that jump from a 40 to a 45, or make that jump from a 46 to a 48 on a consecutive basis? So a lot of those questions, we kind of try and, I guess, have different strategies to kind of obtain each of those goals. So for me, trying to make a lot of progress in a short while with these kids within that full calendar year. We do a whole bunch of different progressive sets and reasons. So a kid will come in, give a set to me. I might critique it for a quick 30 seconds, and then that kid sits down and listens to the next person that comes in. So by the end of it, if you have a team of 10 kids, the last person in will go ahead and give that set to his entire teammates, as well as yourself as coach. We do a handful of reasons battles. So I might line the kids up and say, okay, go ahead, start, and then I'll cut them off and then have somebody else start. So trying to just not remember a set of notes, but remember the livestock that you're talking about, and be able to just start and stop at times is very beneficial from just a kind of a memory standpoint, and trying to not remember the livestock, or not remember your notes, but the livestock. One of the things we just did last week, actually, last Friday, is I had a video camera and we came in, worked up a set of bulls that we had talked at Denver about a week prior, and made a few changes to that. And then the kids had a videotape themselves giving that set. So what we're going to do this weekend is we're going to watch those sets and we're going to start to break down, okay, we need to show a little bit more emotion here. We need to dive deeper into the details here. One kid in particular, he might be moving his feet, so his body language starts to shift a little bit more. So those are kind of the easy things that we're starting to take into account a little bit there on the reason side. On a class standpoint, I'm a firm believer in quality over quantity. And if you get the right amount of classes you need within 3 or even 2 classes, and the class logic, it makes sense, and the kids get it, and we kind of drill home the points we need to, I don't necessarily see a need for another 10 extra classes that might confuse them more so than help them. So from a class logic, from just an introductory level explanation, to even reason standpoints, those are kind of the big things that I've stressed here on kind of the main campus. So feel free to ask or try and pick both of our brains in terms of what's the technique, or maybe you want to take one a technique from each of us. feel free. We're here to help and make your jobs as easy as possible, and maybe even help get out a new kid started or a new kid involved that wants to grow exponentially. So that's kind of my big spiel in terms of class logic, reason standpoint from coaching kind of atmosphere.
Do we have any questions yet?
If you don't want to unmute yourself, you're also welcome to type it in the chat, and Kayla will ask it for you.
All right. Well, while we're waiting on questions, one thing while Matthew was talking, I was thinking, I'm sure everybody's sitting there with young kids saying, well, the main question I always get is, Seth, I just don't understand how you get them to not use their notebook. And the easiest thing I tell them, it's real easy. You just never let them start. Okay. I mean, like, I'm sorry, but it is a crutch. I mean, we need to make sure that I would rather a young person get through the opening paragraph and give them a pat on the back saying good job and keep working them forward than allowing them to use their notebook. Because once you allow them to use the notebook, you are inviting so much extra work to get that away from them again. You got anything on that, Matthew? I think somebody wrote a question in here.
I'll let Matthew rebuttal if he's got anything else, and then I'll ask the question.
So that statement that rings home. We got one kid in particular that has their comfort is to have that notebook there with them, where they can write everything, and sometimes less is more. And I'm a firm believer in that. And sometimes I agree with you. The approach of maybe not letting them start with the notebook, that's probably the way to go. And in fact, I'll probably even implement that there kind of later in one of the next practices we have, and just give an accuracy set on that without the use of a notebook. So I think that's a very good key point that you bring up there.
So just before you go to that question, I want to clarify what you guys have said. So when you say don't let them use their notebook, I mean, they're using it maybe when they're judging, writing things down.
Yes.
And then when we're giving oral reasons, we are not allowing them to start using that as their crutch while they're giving oral reasons. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's what I meant. And I'm sure that's what Matthew's saying too. I always try to tell my kids, hey, take notes, but I always use the example when I was in college. I used to write it on a judging note card the size of my hand. I never even had a steno. I just put it on my note card on my hand. And because just what Matthew just said, less is more, because a set of reasons is a mental image. You're painting, you're Picasso making this painting of this animal with your mind. If you're memorizing things that you wrote in your notebook, if you are reading things off of your notebook, no, that's not elite evaluation and defending yourself. And I think it can be done. I mean, I've sat and listened to a lot of 10, 11, 12-year-old kids that could talk circles around some 17, 18, could have talked circles around me coming out of high school. I mean, honestly, and that's where they just start them at a younger age in some states. And that's where I know Matthew and I are in a joint venture here trying to implement more reasons into the state of Ohio, because yes, it might be uncomfortable for those kids right off the bat, but I mean, being in an uncomfortable situation allows you growth too. So I really think it's going to be great.
Yeah. All right. So the question that was in the chat, where can we find out if our county has a judging team?
Mackenzie, tag you're in.
You can shoot me an email and I should be able to pull up from records from previous years to see if that team's or county's participated. Additionally, I would also reach out to the educator because the educator in that county is familiar with the teams that are going on because they have to sign off on the form for them to participate at the state contest as well. So you can do either one of those things.
And I will also add that I know that since I've started here, I've had several like people I know, hey, my daughter, my son is really excited and interested in this, but there's no team in my county. I'm also trying to facilitate trying to find coaches for some counties that have a group of kids that are interested in it. So, like, if your son or daughter or anything is you think you're alone in this thing and there's only one of you, maybe reach out to some of those other show families and or in just industry families within the county or something. And with my contacts, Matthew's contacts, people's contacts within the state, we can try to maybe put together trying to find a coach to help try to build a program in your county if you don't have one. So I know I'm working on a couple counties right now. So just food for thought for you guys that are like, I know we don't have a judging team.
All right, so we have a question. How do you get through the stress of judging certain animals with everyone else's opinions and such? Ooh,
I love this.
that's a fun one.
I'll be honest. Okay. I take I'm a believer that livestock judging is a science. It is not an opinion. Okay. I always love when I judge a show. Well, it's just one man's opinion. No, it's really not. It's science. That one's either bow-legged or it's square. It's very black and white. So um I would say to go into that question, I mean, it's not you as a coach, should form fundamentals. So, you know, in the judging world, I guess we call them placing factors. So essentially ranking those animals in an order, which I know Matthew and I are going to go over this in our individual presentations about prioritizing things in specific species. How do we prioritize it? You know, because for example, I use this example all the time with my judging kids here. This generation is taught to judge market animals from a quality standpoint first. From a judging standpoint, at least my opinion, okay, priorities of market livestock are muscle, skeletal width, finish or compositional differences, you know, design and structure. You know, like you place some good heavy muscled animals still have more market value than a really good looking one that has nothing to it. So establishing a priority and staying true to it as an evaluator, as a coach, I think is the big thing, because if you can teach consistency within your students of the basic fundamentals of livestock judging in each species, you know, each species, and some of those might vary. Matthew might have a different opinion of a priority than I do. But if it's consistent, that's how you build a consistent team, essentially, across the board. Matthew, go ahead if you got anything to add on that one.
Yeah, I mean, a great question there, because we see it all the time when it comes to just, you know, whether it's a jackpot show or a large show, state or even a county event, in terms of judges, in terms of their priorities. And honestly, you know, Seth brings up it's a science. You know, you're either square or you're not square, and you're bow-legged. It's, you know, it's a very black and white image. And for a lot of these kids, they're on kind of, you know, that I get to, you know, work with their kind of day in and day out, in order to kind of get them to understand a little bit of that process. What I explain to them is every class, let's just put it, you know, kind of put it in the back of her head, has a 7-point cut. There's always something to do in every class. When people are putting together classes, whether it's Seth and I pulling classes for Ohio Beef Expo in a few weeks, or whether it's gearing up for state contests, we're not going in there to trick you. We're not going in there to make it so difficult where you walk out and say, well, that class, everyone in the entire contest is going to mess it up. Livestock judging is simple, and we just need to let it be simple. So what I tell the kids, our first practice of the new year was at Morgan Price's, looking at some gilts, some gilts in their working clothes, some replacements that they had. And I said, livestock judging is going to be simple. It's going to be easy. Place this class as if you got your grandmother or your grandfather right next to you. What are the things they are going to notice across the board that are so black and white that you'll always be accurate if you had to describe them? And in doing so, we're able to consecutively and consistently find a 7-point cut within every class. And then from there, from a coaching style, we were able to, okay, if that's going to be the closest pair, what's the kind of the science behind it? What makes it close? What's the biggest difference between them? And kind of narrowed it down from that perspective. But livestock judging, ultimately, it allows you and even those kids that you're coaching to, at the end of the day, understand that in life they have to stand behind something. So whether it's, yes, that animal's bow-legged, that animal's is too straight, or that's a good-looking animal that has absolutely no sort of skeletal width to it. Because if we can stand behind that and avoid this kind of the large cats in kind of respective classes, livestock judging at that point becomes easy and is simplified for everyone. So I know that's a little bit different than how it's kind of Seth kind of explained it there, but I try and get the kids to understand that, hey, we're not in there to be fooled, or whoever's putting the contest together is trying to fool you, but there's something to do. There's a place for always one animal at times.
Mm-hmm. All right. So the next question that came in was, how do we know where the contests are?
Well, I guess from my perspective, there's so many different outlets to find that information. I mean, obviously, extension, if it's a 4-H based contest, would be really good with Mackenzie Dorr that's on this call as well. OhioFFA .org, you can look at their schedule that actually has their CDE events. Some of those CDEs are only FFA, no 4-H. Some of them offer the opportunity for 4-H. I know the one here at the end of February at ATI offers FFA and 4-H, as well as, I would assume, Matthew and I's both of our Facebook pages with our judging programs will be promoting different things. I know ATI is putting on a contest April 13th that's FFA and 4-H both. We're going to have mandatory 4 sets of reasons for seniors and mandatory 2 sets for juniors, which is how the state finals of the 4-H contest is, as well as the state finals for FFA is. So, yeah, I mean, you're OhioFFA.org and the extension and your extension educator should have some information for that as well. And, when in doubt, call me.
Mm-hmm.
I always say, I throw my cell phone number around there, plenty. Don't call me on my office phone. Just call me on my cell phone. So at the end of the day, I know Matthew and I are very open to helping out. So be willing to, get in touch with us if you need us.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can, along those lines, the goal of with you putting your email addresses into this group chat, our goal is to communicate with you of the contests that we're aware of. Now, yes, there's lots out there. I noticed that at the end of the year, there were some end of the year jackpots that were going on that had contests with them that all of a sudden popped up. So us sharing information with each other is also key, but that's why we wanted your info so we can get that out to you as well. Because I, as a county, struggle with that as well, the contests that are out there for my kids. So that's our goal with us gathering your information.
Okay. All right. So I got another question. What advice do you have for a high school age kid with a showing background that is in a county that doesn't have much livestock judging opportunity to participate in judging in their collegiate career? Are there tryouts for collegiate teams, or how does that work?
So since this is a high school question, they're going to see me before they see Matthew, hopefully. I'll take this one. So the first thing on that question, I'm looking back and forth at the question, making sure. But so high school age, showing background, county that doesn't have much livestock judging opportunity. So I know here at ATI, and we've actually started a information thread, I don't know what you'd call it, about anytime my team works out, my ATI team works out at a producer's place, or here at our school farms, or I've tried to put together several open opportunities for students here with the sheep and goat unit, putting together 10 classes of sheep and goats for kids, as well as my open mock contest during the summer. Planning on doing a judging camp this year as well. But getting exposed to as many of those opportunities as you can, because at the mock contest, it's actually structured a lot like I'm coaching you. Like I give you 10, 15 minutes to judge a class, talk to your coach. Then you have the option to come hear me talk the class and how I feel you should see it, just to try to get you guys to see some differences maybe. The open events, I wasn't really planning on those for me to coach it at it essentially, but the last two we did have, I ended up having 30 plus people. Hey, Seth, can you come talk this class to our kids? Sure. That's what we're here for. The other part of that is call me if they have interest in judging, and I don't know about them. There's so many counties in the state of Ohio, so many people that if you've never heard of Seth Ebert and you've never judged in a contest or a 4-H contest, it's tough for me to know who's all out there to recruit. So if you have an interest, by all means, get a hold of me. And I've actually sent judging manuals, information on workouts, included, some students that are in that situation. They want to come here and judge for us, but they don't have a team. Hey, come work out with my team. I mean, there's nothing against it. Come out here and get better. And then when you get here as a freshman, we're ready to go. So there is no tryouts. I mean, I don't do any tryouts. If you want to be on the judging team here, the tryout for, I guess, judging in the collegiate game is who can handle the grind of judging in a collegiate judging program. I don't believe in cutting somebody beforehand because, I mean, I've got kids right now that have never marked a card. How could I expect them to be great at a tryout? But they've grasped, and really bought into the fact of learning how to do it. So there is no tryouts. It's open to the public, but like I said, the earlier you let me know you're interested in it, the more I can give you information, opportunities to take advantage of, as well as, like I said, I'm really trying to put together open events for youth. So when I do it, I hope y'all can take advantage of it, because Matthew and I both understand how hard it is sometimes to get workouts together, to get quality classes put together, and have the facility to handle it, more than one class. So I've really tried to, and I know we're going to try to keep continuing to do that. So taking advantage of those opportunities, but they're, at least at ATI, there's no tryouts. So you don't have to worry about that here. But like I said, interested to see what county that where you're from, because maybe there's a possibility to get some kids put together or something like that. So if you have any questions like that, or if you would like to call me, I'm sure Becky or Kayla can share my contact. But maybe we can get you a team put together if you've got a few years in high school.
All right, next one. So are the juniors and senior classes separated by age or years of experience?
Matthew, I'm getting hoarse. You go ahead and take this one.
So are we talking juniors and seniors there on kind of the senior college level, or like in 4-H?
Maybe we should cover both just in case.
Okay, so kind of the junior age on the 4-H side is, from I believe 8 to 14. Is that correct, Mackenzie? And then and it's 14 as of January 1, and then seniors start they're at the age of 15, working on on way up. Now on the senior college side of things, when it comes to just kind of differences in class, or I guess age and class and skill set. So your calendar year for that senior college is, you start, let's say January 1, you hit, first off is Denver, and then you're going to judge that entire calendar year until Louisville, which is their first part of November. So you'll start your senior college career as a spring semester junior, and then you'll finish your senior college year as a fall semester senior, and then you got that spring semester before graduation, your senior year. So on the senior college side of things, your junior and senior, I guess we don't necessarily equate it to that, but you do begin your second semester of your junior year on that side of things. Now, unlike senior college versus out of junior college, they're at ATI versus kind of main campus Columbus. They're at ATI. You'll judge your entire freshman year, your entire sophomore year, and there'll be freshman contests, sophomore contests, and they might even call them, JUCO pros. There for sophomores as well for a few of those contests. Whereas on the senior college side, it's strictly start at January 1 and we wrap up about November 14th, November 15th.
All right, so our next question, what resources such as manuals, books, and other materials are available to greater our learning experience and improve our skills in livestock judging?
So I know I've got a manual up here, and I'm sure Matthew's got one down there as well. The one thing I will say, I mean, like sending the manual is a good thing, but I've also seen a lot of manuals just collecting dust that have never been opened. And that's where, when we were trying to put together the open events and offering those in-person events, they were meant to be extremely educational, to really reinforce what's in those manuals. And, because you reading it and truly understanding it and being able to ask the questions, that's why we're doing this webinar thing, was to try to offer that opportunity. So maybe the things in the manual that are just real black and white and vague, Matthew and I can get more in depth on. But I would, if you want a manual, by all means, send me an email or shoot me a text with your email. I can send mine to you, no doubt. I've got performance data. I've got typed up reason sets. We got all sorts of stuff that I'm definitely willing to share with with Buckeye Nation for sure. But Matthew can reiterate or say something different, but I would strongly recommend coming to some of these open events and bringing your kids and learning as much as you can at those events, because that's what we're holding them for, is for a learning experience, not to say, oh, well, let's just go out and judge 8 classes of sheep. Well, no, let's go learn about 8 classes of sheep. So hopefully by the state finals in FFA or 4-H, or anything like that, the student's success can be, better.
I know here at Columbus, kind of the big things, I try and provide with, each of those students is one, it's great to have a manual like mentioned there, but at times, we just might maybe read and not necessarily retain that information in a manual, and then that manual goes to the shelf and doesn't get opened again for another couple years, or when you're repacking your room to go to junior college. I know that's exactly what happened to me. But coming into kind of these live workshops allows you the ability to actually apply that information, more so from a word of mouth standpoint. But the big thing that I went ahead and created for each of the kids here on this year's team is we have something what I call a Reasons Bible. So it's kind of a conglomerate set of national contest sets that have been talked over the probably last 4 years, that kids can be able to pull maybe some transitions from, see how phrasing was utilized, see how we were able to front load sentences at times, just to tell a greater story. So I do have a kind of a Reasons Bible available that if you wanted it, you can utilize it. Now at times though, it's, we don't want to hear that same set used by 30 different kids in the same contest, because at that point it's just reading it. But we'll be more than happy to make that as shareable. There's about 57 pages between all 4 species, but that's that.
All right. Any more questions?
Got to be more than that.
Yeah, there's got to be. So I
There's
guess
I was going
I'll
to say,
ask
there's some anonymous thing here that you can
yeah.
put so nobody
Um,
knows who you are.
So I'll just ask like a basic question. So a lot of this is for coaches. So what would your first steps be in trying to get a team together? You're trying to start a team in a county. What would your first steps be?
My first one, I've actually thought of that question for the last 3 weeks of how I'd respond to it and break that down. And the biggest thing I can see programs that, are trying to start need is finding the leader, finding who is going to be the coach or the organizer or the go-to person, because any successful program has a certain type of stability that's why they can have continued success, because it's not a revolving door of who is my coach. I don't know who that is, or his kid aged out, so then he quit, or stuff like that. I think the state of Ohio, uniquely enough, has so many former evaluators that I think with the excitement wrapped around having a junior college and senior college program in the state right now, that alumni is really getting excited. I think, reaching out to some of those, maybe they can't be the everyday coach, but they can help. But you got to find your person, the person that's not gonna, I guess, take no for an answer sometimes when you've got younger kids that are getting irritated, or not as excited about it as you thought they'd be, or they bust a class and they're totally down on themselves. Somebody that can be that rock for your team or program would be the first thing I'd be trying to find, is just that go-to person.
Mhm. All right. Let me go back.
I think it would be safe to say, if you're not an existing coach right now, of going to your extension office and checking with your 4-H educators of what's happening, what's
Mhm.
the current situation in your county, what's going on, is there that leader already, and you just had missed the what's going on.
Yeah.
So start there first, and then from there, just then you can move forward of finding that great leader. And it could be you. And I know, Seth, you had talked about sometimes you might not be the greatest expert, but you're that organizer, you're that person that keeps them going, gets them signed up for contests, and can find them the resources to keep moving forward
Yes.
and finding those experts. So I think we fear that sometimes as new coaches of like, we don't know enough. And we're afraid we're not the experts like you two of all the years of experience.
Yeah. Educators at this point, they're probably need someone if they don't already have a team. And maybe, like Becky said, you did miss out on that being in the know that that was already happening. They're happy to share that information, but most educators are so overwhelmed that they can't start a team themselves. So they're actually looking for people like you that care just as much as they do to start a team. And your educator will be a great resource of finding you resources. They have contacts, all over the state. Seth and Matthew are just a phone call away. They have direct lines right to them. So they can definitely get you on the right track, or at least give you the pieces that you can put together. I guarantee if they don't have a team, they're waiting for someone to start a team, because it's just another great thing that 4-H offers. Being able to give a set of reasons to a complete stranger, that is so intimidating, but that is one of the best things you will ever learn in your life.
Yeah, I just got another question on my phone here, actually, about maybe just some coaching styles as far as classroom, versus on the hoof training versus scheduling type of stuff. And that's a really good question. Me personally, I'm jealous of this generation because when I was in college, you had to drive. I went to Casper, in Wyoming. I had to drive 8 hours just to find a Walmart. But trying to find stock, this generation's got livestockjudging.com, Judging Pro. And, I'll be honest, my team utilizes livestockjudging.com immensely. I think they do an incredible job at videoing livestock. And I think it's such a great teaching opportunity for coaches, because one of the main, like, fundamental things I always like to teach is people say, "Oh, I can't learn anything from a picture class." Oh, the heck you can. Yes, you can. I mean, it's either coming off the page at you or it's staying flat. Flat is 2-dimensional. Coming off the page is 3-dimensional. It's the same thing in the video world, but better, because they show you every view. They probably give you more views on livestockjudging.com than most kids judge on the hoof. You actually have to see chest, rear view, 3/4 coming at you, 3/4, top view, rear view, side view, all that. And I think livestockjudging.com, for you coaches that maybe don't have a ton of experience, and are learning, maybe, a lot of those have actual live results, the cuts, the placing, the live committee member talking about the class of why they did the way they did it. Now, a word to the wise, you don't have to tell your kids you looked at that, but at the same time, you can utilize that as maybe a resource for you guys. And I think, at least for me in my program here, I like to teach them the basics on whatever I'm trying to teach, the basics on whatever species in the classroom. I truly believe in the classroom, basics is a necessity. And then you reinforce things on the hoof, because for me, it's so easy for these kids to have a natural bias on the hoof. Maybe one cocked its head off really nice, and then they have a predetermined thing. If you just sit in the classroom and you're studying livestock as individuals, you take that kind of bias away a little bit, and it teaches them to be really rooted on those fundamentals, and then take them out and challenge them with a on the hoof class and see if you need to go back in the classroom or if you're good to go. Matthew, if you got anything to
Yeah.
add, man, fire away.
I personally love livestockjudging.com. And what's nice is on the university level, Jeff there at livestockjudging.com makes it free for universities. But back to maybe a little bit of that coaching philosophy that I mentioned earlier in terms of a 7 point a 7 point cut in every class. So we'll do kind of fast rounds once we go over the basics, and we might go through kind of the beef cattle side of things, and we might start off on steers, and it's like, okay, we're going to quickly judge this class within the first minute. I need your officials, and then we're going to see, okay, there's a 5 point cut here. That's technically what I would consider my 7 point cut. Okay, do we avoid that? Do we quickly are we able to pick up on those black and white things, so things that are cut and dry from an understanding level. So we use livestockjudging.com immensely. In fact, we're in conversation about even having the state 4-H judging contest this year, all videoed. They're on livestockjudging.com. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that all works and that goes through there, because that would be a great asset and a great tool for the state of Ohio. But don't hesitate to reach out to in regards to livestockjudging.com. You can always put together certain let's say contests for practice. So maybe you can't have the entire group meet, or it's a snow day when you had practice scheduled. You can say, hey, we got a list of 12 classes and assign classes to students if you're going to have practice. So it's a great tool. When it comes to on the hoof training, that's kind of what Seth said there. Use that moment to reinstate, continue to solidify what you learned or what you taught about there in the classroom. Whether it's go back to take what Seth said in the very beginning. A pig. We want square up high, square below, just like that of a brick. Okay, perfect. Well, that pig is a little bit round or plainer. The way he opens up behind his blade, he's a little bit plainer out of his upper hip. Those things are what we're able to reinforce from what we see there in livestockjudging.com. So don't shy away from those opportunities. They can benefit tremendously.
I'll also charge in there just a little bit more on coach's philosophy on the hoof. And one thing that there's two things I want to hit on real quick. One thing I really like to do with my teams that I've coached over the years, and especially now at the collegiate level, is I have them, and this might be tough if you've got 10, 11, 12-year-old youngster, but your seniors in 4-H, your FFAs, those kids, and you're coaching older kids that can understand it. I like to ask them to cut classes. Like when you're judging the class, cut it. The reason I say that is if I place it 1, 2, 3, 4, but Johnny or Jim over here in the corner places it, 3, 1, 2, 4, I cut it 5, 2, and 5, and he cuts it 2, 10, and 2. The logic of the fundamentals that you're learning are totally wrong. Like you need to go back in as a coach to make sure they understand the basic priorities. I don't know if that was well explained enough. I'm not that good at public speaking, but cutting classes, a 2-point cut, that's a tough pair. A 5-point cut, okay, that's pretty easy, right? So just even if it's the little things of, hey, what's the biggest cut in class? Maybe that's a way at a younger age you can start making them think, because what it actually does is helps them in the reasons room, because then they understand the logic of a class and understand how to talk the class in a manner that makes sense, let's say. But that was the first thing I wanted to hit on. The second thing, and I'm not saying anybody that's on here is this type of coach, but the fastest, since we're talking mentalities of coaching, the fastest way to run young kids out or older kids out is make them feel stupid. So, I deal with it collegiate level. So it doesn't get better the older they get, right? So what I'm saying is like making them understand and see their value. Like, hey, I know you can see this. Like, one thing I said to my team a million times, you bust a class, I'm not going to yell at you. I want you to learn the lesson and don't do it again. That's all I want you to do. Learn the lesson, don't do it again, and move on. And I think sometimes competitions and competitiveness, I'm one of the most competitive people you ever meet. So I'm just speaking from personal experience, but that competitive drive can make you want to try to make somebody that's maybe not seeing it, that needs just a little bit more coaching. It makes you start yelling, you get irritated, you throw your notebook. We've all been, anybody that's judged on this Zoom call has seen a coach do it. I mean, it happens, but it just can't be an everyday thing, because then you just run them out. So trying to reinforce things on the hoof is a good thing, but just remember, if they go out there and they bust it, it's not the end of the world. Just get back in there, teach those fundamentals, and get it fixed. And I think you'll see more kids not getting burned out. I've seen kids get burned out, they say, or less interested when they start feeling like you think they're stupid.
I'm gonna kind of piggyback off that a little bit before I kind of segue into Andrew's question there. But what Seth brought up in terms of having kids cut classes, that's an incredible skill set, and it allows you to understand what's kind of going through each of those kids' mindset when it comes to that 10-minute evaluation. Now, well, I take that one step further at times, and when it comes to cutting a class, 0-3-7 is traditionally how I like to do it. A 0-point cut, that's the biggest discussion. That's where we need to spend majority of our time in terms of a reasons standpoint. A 3-point cut is in a contest setting going to be anywhere from a 3 to a 5, and then our 7-point cuts like that of a 5, or whatever the biggest cut is in that class. So those 7-point cuts, how I kind of relay this information in terms of a reasons understanding. So we type up our reason sets. So I want the smallest box or the shortest amount of time spent talking about a pair of them. That needs to be our 7-point cut. We need to spend the most amount of time breaking down that 0-point cut between that, let's say, animal 1 and animal 2, if that's the closest pair. So when it comes to, a 0-3-7 logic, and then typing out a set of reasons, it allows those kids to say, okay, I remember, I reflect back to that class we judged, an hour ago, I just typed up this set on that class, and okay, perfect. Now when I tell them, hey, you're too long in that middle pair, remember that was a 7-point cut. Let's, be quicker in that. Let's break it down faster. They can understand that because there needs to be less time with that. Now, from a reason standpoint, I take into not only the class placing, class logic, cut standpoint, within that class into kind of effect, but also we always tell kids be accurate. More accurate sets score. So granted, there's a lot of things to take in, whether it's presentation, accuracy, content, creativity, flow. But accuracy for me is going to be the largest one. And what I tell the students is we're going to talk the black and white things. Tell me what your grandmother or your grandfather sees in those 4 animals. That one's, that animal number 1, that one's stout, opened up, powerful. Okay. Animal 2, that one's a little flatter, a little poor structured, not, needs to be kind of a little burlier. Animal 3, hey, that's a moderate, low maintenance animal that's probably a bit too plain in their overall look. Animal 4, same thing. So those big picture things that no one, in the history of livestock judging will ever argue with, helps with that accuracy. From a presentation standpoint, allowing those kids to just simplify things at times and not necessarily get so long-winded helps, your flow, your presentation style. And then what I'd encourage kids to do is say it out loud, say it, and go find a wall outside of, a building or a barn, and practice that set out loud. because when you can hear yourself and then also say it, there's two ways of kind of trying to remember that set. Typing it up is extremely beneficial in terms of maybe some of that presentation, so you can understand some punctuation where pauses need to be, but really accuracy, presentation style, and content, as well as delivery is going to help on kind of how we score reasons.
Mhm. No new questions yet. So I'll just kind of spitfire some. Say you started a new team. What is the first thing you're going to cover on your first practice when you bring everyone together?
I guess for me, it's understanding what the ideal, what they're supposed to look like, parts, pieces. You know, I always try to stress as a coach to other coaches, talk to livestock how you want your kids to talk to livestock. So, that means like, let's say the difference between blade and shoulder. We're going to talk blade in hogs, maybe get away with it in goats, but we're not going to talk blade in cattle and sheep. Like, we're not going to do that. And I'm always conscious of the terminology I use when we go over those, just a basic fundamental build, what's a good heifer? Why is that good? What is a good bull? Placing factors, those placing factors I was talking about, I think that's something very good to go over. And I think the big thing, and I get it, Matthew and I are maybe at a advantage. We get to see our kids a lot more than some of these 4-H coaches. So we can take our time a little bit more through some things. But I think from a 4-H level, don't wait until the month before you want to be good to start. Try to, even if it's once a month, you get together and we just go over some basic stuff. And then once you get into summer months or something where you're trying to push for the state 4-H contest or FFA in the spring or whatever it could be, when you start going harder at it, it's more of a refresher than a learning experience, if that makes sense. But go ahead, Matthew, if you got anything extra on that.
Nah, we just trying to hit the priorities, kind of priority 1 through priority 4 or 5, whether it's breeding or market animal, vice versa. And then just understanding what our ideals are going to be. This is kind of what we're looking for. We're going to try and stay as close to it as possible. Maybe in a low quality class, we don't have that. So guess what? We're going to revert back to a little bit of that discussion in terms of our priorities. Okay, on the breeding cattle, breeding livestock. Okay, structure, some build quality. On hogs, we're going to talk design. So those breed or species specific terms, we also hit on at times as well, more so when we're diving more in depth onto those certain species. But really, that's kind of the big thing, just understanding your ideals and understanding your priorities.
All right, there's a question in the chat. Why wouldn't you talk blade and sheep?
You want to take that? You're the sheep guy.
So if I had to guess, Casey, you might be a sheep guy. So over the last few years, there's been a lot of discussion between blade length on sheep. How can we, anatomically shorten one's blade in relation to, a longer bladed sheep, things like that. So there's always, maybe there's some reasons takers that are for it. There's some reasons takers that are against it. So when it comes to on a collegiate level, I tell my kids you can use something only if you're comfortable with it, only if you understand what you're saying. Because nobody likes that person that can just, recite, a set and they don't understand what they're saying. Mm-hmm. But on the, the blade length conversation on sheep, As a sheep guy, whether I'm jumping in the ring, I'm going to be a big proponent on terms of blade length and how it correlates into kind of some underlying qualities, some body shape, and how those things are sculpted in their foreribs. But because I think that goes a little hand in hand. But really, when you're talking to 90% of the general population that are not small ruminant people, it gets a little bit more sketchy in terms of what they're trying to imply, trying to kind of mention. So that's why we try and stay away from the blatant conversation on the senior college level.
All right. So we are at 8:06 now. Looks like Casey wants to chat some more. So Casey, Matthew did put his info in if you want to kind of chat with him and kind of share some ideas, share some advice, some conversations there. But we are at 8:06, so we want to be respectful of our coaches' times and everyone else's times. If there's any last second questions, you can just shoot them to their emails. I have their emails as well. And then we also have collected everyone's names and emails. If you missed that point, make sure you have put your first and last name and your email in the chat so we can collect all that information. Then we're going to start sending out resources and updates and ways for you guys to get even more information. So we definitely want to continue this conversation into our next one, which is February, was it 19th is our next one? I think I have to look at
Third Monday.
Yeah, so we're trying to stick with the third Mondays. That way we're trying to stay consistent. And these guys are going to be great in trying to get some PowerPoints put together, and they're going to share all their knowledge that they have with us and try and get everyone more and more resources as we move forward. As Seth said, we want to represent Buckeye Nation and bring some more Buckeyes out there. So if you guys, again, have not added your first and last name in the chat with your email, please do so. Seth and Matthew did put their emails out there, and they even were nice enough to put their personal cell phones out there. So contact them. If you have not contacted your local 4-H educator yet, that's a great resource and somewhere where to start talking judging teams. That's a great place to just begin the conversation. Anything else you guys want to put in?
One thing, Kinsey and I talked about age of a junior in 4-H versus a senior in 4-H, because there can be different ages across the 4-H program as far as grouping. And they are 8 to 13 years old as of January 1st, considered a junior. And then the senior group of 4-H members are that 14 as of January 1st to the upper age. So just want to clarify that section in there.
Yep.
I think that's it. Well, thank you, Seth. Thank you,
Yeah,
Matthew.
does anybody have any other questions? Because I got a minute if we want to talk.
I can stay on if people still want to keep asking questions. I don't want to.
If they have no questions, then let's roll.
Yeah.
But if anybody has any.
The one thing that Mackenzie also put in the chat box that maybe you all didn't see is part of the thing is they're starting a remind group that will send out the information about contests that we gather. So that's why we're gathering your email. So we can send you that invite to, if you'd like to be part of that remind group, and get information real time from us. And if you are having a contest in your county at a jackpot or wherever it else is, and you want us all to know, please let us know. We can't.
That's probably our biggest question at this point. Where can I go to judge?
So let us know what's happening out there. I don't like seeing after the fact that this one county won at a contest that I didn't know about.
Jealous that way. Wish they
Yeah,
share the goods.
don't be afraid to send me something and remind me, or an email if you have a contest, and I can put it on our Facebook page and send it out to everybody and remind me as well. And I did want to mention as well, I did put something in the chat. We are having a virtual contest on our Facebook page that starts tomorrow. That's a really good way to get, especially beginning youth, a little bit more excited about judging. It's on the Ohio 4-H Animal Sciences program Facebook page. It's nothing too formal. It's just looking at a picture and filling out a link. So nothing too crazy, but it's really
It was fun.
easy,
I did it last year.
simple contest. Yeah. Anybody can do it. If you guys want to do it as coaches, you can do it too. I have an advanced group. So,
Thanks for doing that, Mackenzie. It was a lot of fun.
yep, no problem.
All
Well,
right.
thank everybody again.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Matthew, Becky, Mackenzie. I'll stay on, see if anyone throws some questions out, but it seems like our number is slowly dropping.